Welcome to the Champs App podcast. Champs App is your recruiting and development co-pilot. If you are a player, parent, or coach, make sure to check out more content and tools to help navigate the world of youth hockey at champs.app. Also, if you've listened to the Champs App podcast in the past and it has helped you with your recruiting or hockey development, please tell your teammates and friends about Champs App. It would be even better if you subscribe to the podcast and review or rate us on whichever platform you're listening to or watching us on. On today's episode, I talk with Greg Fargo, head coach of the New York Sirens in the Professional Women's Hockey League and founder of Fargo Hockey. We discuss a wide range of topics, including Greg's hockey journey from playing goalie in Ontario to coaching at Elmira and building Colgate into a national powerhouse, his We Play Free coaching philosophy, the transition from college to the pros, the challenge of the Siren season, the upcoming PWHL draft, and his Fargo Camp college recruiting experience in Rochester. This was an amazing conversation with Greg, so please enjoy. Recruiting season is underway. June 15th is fast approaching, and the families who are ready will have a serious edge. Champs 360 is built to get you prepared. We've added powerful recruiting tools to help you stay organized, get informed, and make smarter decisions. College Search lets you filter and find the right school. My Shortlist lets you save and track those teams as your recruiting journey develops. And for every school on your shortlist, the team dashboard gives you a deep look at school-specific content, rosters, coaching staff, messages, recruiting data, events, and more, all in one place. We've also made it easier for families to work together. Players can share access with their parents so everyone stays on the same page throughout the process. And every player gets a free professional recruiting at Champs Mail email ad. Put it on your event registrations, recruiting forms, anywhere coaches will see it. When coaches reply, those emails forward straight to your personal inbox or your parent. No extra accounts to manage, with more privacy and control. With Champs 360, you can send or schedule messages to coaches directly through your Champs Mail address and track when your messages get opened and how often, giving you real signal on which schools are paying attention. Don't wait. The recruiting calendar doesn't slow down. Visit champs.app or download the app to get started. I'm excited to welcome to the podcast Greg Fargo, head coach of the New York Sirens in the Professional Women's Hockey League. Originally from Kingston, Ontario, Greg played goalie at Elmira College before joining Canisius as an assistant coach and then becoming the Elmira women's head coach at just 25 years old. He then spent 12 years building Colgate's women's hockey program into a national powerhouse, including 4 ECAC championships, 2 Frozen Fours, and a national championship appearance. In 2024, Greg became the first Division I head coach to jump to the PWHL, taking over the New York Sirens. This season, the Sirens set a U.S. professional women's hockey attendance record with over 18,000 fans at Madison Square Garden. Greg, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks a lot, Ray. Great to be here with you.
Hey, well, so why don't we start off like we do all of our guests, telling us about growing up in Kingston and what made you become a goalie, and how did your parents let you become a goalie?
Yeah, great question. Not something that I would recommend any young parents out there letting their kid be a goalie these days. But yeah, I was grew up in Kingston, Ontario. Actually, prior to I always call Kingston home, but I was my first residence was actually Wolf Island, Ontario. Which is one of the largest Thousand Island next to Kingston, and spent some time there growing up as a young boy, and then we moved to Cornwall, and it was in Cornwall, Ontario, where I actually started playing hockey, started playing goalie, and my story goes back to just playing on the playground. That's what we did at recess time. We played foot hockey at the time, and so, I think one of my good friends at the time, again, like second, third grade, whatever it was a goalie, and he often brought his equipment in and had it on. I thought it was really cool. So that's kind of how I got into it, is wanting to mimic one of my buddies at school, and the rest is history. Didn't look back past then. I think, I got to credit my dad a little bit, because as young as I was and wanted to be goalie, the thing that he always told me is that I had to really learn how to become a better skater before I could put the pads on full time. So he stuck to his word, and I did what I needed to do in order to get a full set out goalie gear full time. But great experience. loved growing up there in Cornwall, and later moved to Kingston, where we still call home, I guess. And yeah, just great upbringing around the game, and that grew into a passion that still remains bright today.
Got it. So if you're growing up in Cornwall, you're right on the edge of the Quebec border. So were you like a Patrick Roy fan? And I believe you're probably young enough to be there right when the Sens first started. So maybe you're an Ottawa Senators fan, or maybe you're like a Felix Potvin Toronto fan.
Yeah,
Where do your
great
allegiances
question.
lie?
Yeah, well, growing up in Cornwall and then Kingston, like you're kind of right in the middle of you know, like you said, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, and but my dad was always a Boston Bruins fan for whatever reason.
Oh,
And
interesting.
and so at the time, like the Bruins and the Canadians, had a huge rivalry in the Eastern Conference, and so that was my upbringing, is that, like, that's what I remember the most, is that rivalry between Boston and Montreal, watching the NHL. Andy Moog was actually the goalie that I admired the most. But it was hard to ignore the brilliance of Patrick Waugh at the time. I mean, he was the best goalie in the league. And growing up in Cornwall, he was everywhere. So grew a fond appreciation for Patrick Waugh, Andy Moog, a lot of goalies back then. Um, and I would say, honestly, we talk about it all the time as coaches here, but as a young goalie, that you don't have access to the same kind of goalie training or video that you once had, or that you have now. A lot of your game was trying to mimic what the pros did, and take little parts of their game, and incorporate them into your own. And so that's what I recall the most. It's really cool to be talking about kind of the upbringing and where it all started. But luckily to be in a family that allowed me to follow my passion, and here we are today.
Gotcha. So you played junior hockey, but you didn't play for the Kingston Frontenacs. You played for, I think, like the OJHL team or something similar to it. So how did that all happen?
Yeah, so I guess I was played for the Kingston Voyageurs, which is at the time was, I don't think the team exists anymore, but it was the Ontario Provincial Junior Hockey League, Tier 2 Junior A League, right there in Kingston. I played my minor hockey for Greater Kingston, and then when I was 16, made the jump to Junior A for the Voyageurs, and had an opportunity to play 3 years of junior, right in my hometown, about 5 minutes from home, and that led to great experience. Had a lot of fun playing with some of the guys that I grew up with in Kingston, and again had some great years playing junior. But that led me down the road to Elmira a few years later, and the opportunity to be seen by the coaches at Elmira. But great opportunity to be able to play junior in your hometown.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I had to go look on a map exactly where Elmira is. I've actually driven by it on my way from Rochester to New York City. So it's south of the Finger Lakes. It's probably almost immediately south of Kingston, but by 100 miles, and you got to cross the Lake Ontario. So maybe how did you end up there?
Yeah, great question. I was, like I said, I was in my, at the time it was my grade 13 year. OAC is what they called it back in Ontario. Um, and it was your grade 13 year. I went to high school for 5 years actually, and playing for the Voyageurs. And one of the teams in our league was the Syracuse Junior Crunch. And so we'd often travel to Syracuse, and I think it was at a game in Syracuse when Aaron Saul, the current head coach at Elmira, who was assistant at the time, he saw me play, and that led to a conversation after the game. And frankly, growing up in Kingston, um, it was all about the OHL as a young boy. Like the OHL, the Kingston Frontenacs, that was kind of the path that you were on. And so truthfully, I didn't know a whole lot about the college route, and certainly didn't know a whole lot about Division 3 hockey and what it was like. So it was through those initial conversations with Aaron, getting to know him getting to know myself, my family, that led to a visit to campus, and truthfully, That's what really sold it for me, was going down to a game with Elmira. It was their alumni weekend. They were playing. I remember them playing RIT, and that was a huge rivalry when RIT was a Division III institution. Um, and I left there thinking, man, I really need to find a way to be a part of this. And truthfully, Elmira was the only place I visited. But it was the connection with the coaches and just the overall fit there. I think that led me to Elmira for a 4-year career.
Gotcha. So we're going to need to move on to your coaching career, but I do have one question still about your playing career, which is explain to folks how good Division III hockey is, because it's way better than people think.
Yeah, it really is. I don't think it gets enough credit, and you talk about being a kid from Ontario that really had no idea about going down to play Division III hockey, but it was outstanding. Like, to be in an environment, it was a small liberal arts school at Elmira with a great education and had an opportunity to represent your school, and it's something that I never took lightly, and I still don't to this day. It was a great experience that, you're surrounded by your best friends, just like Division I, aspiring to become the best player that you can in a great environment where, the people at the school in the community really supported the team exceptionally well. And it was just a great experience as a player to walk into the building on Friday night and see 2, 3 thousand people in the stands supporting you, and for you to represent something much bigger than yourself, which is the school that you go to and the people that you get a chance to surround yourself with. So for me, um, it was a great experience. Luckily, I had the opportunity to be a starting goalie for 4 years, something that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do probably at a Division I institution. And I look back at it with such fond memories. We were able to win a couple championships there, but most importantly, just develop as a player and do it with some of my very best friends, even still today.
Hopefully by now you've heard of Champs IQ, our hockey video analysis service designed to give players and families honest, objective feedback on where a player's game truly is today. I wanted to take a moment to explain how it works and, more importantly, why it's been so impactful, because honestly, we've been blown away by how consistently positive the feedback has been from parents and players after they receive their reports. Several families have already used Champs IQ multiple times this season. One parent summed it up perfectly. The analysis report itself was impressive, far exceeding my expectations or the perceived value from the website. It provides an honest and detailed assessment of the player, which is incredibly useful for identifying strengths and weaknesses. Champs IQ is built for both boys and girls, skaters, and goalies. Players submit at least 10 minutes of edited game footage, and our expert analysts deliver a data-driven evaluation across more than 15 key attributes. Every report includes an overall rating, a projection of NCAA Division I potential, and most importantly, clear, actionable development priorities so players know exactly what to work on next. We hear this from a lot of parents. I thought I knew where my player was at, but this helped me truly understand where they need to improve. That clarity is what makes Champs IQ different. Now, we know video editing can feel intimidating at first. You can absolutely edit the video yourself, and we have step-by-step guides on Champs app to help. And if you use services like LiveBarn or the Prospect Exchange, those tools can make preparing your submission fast and easy. The submission guidelines may look detailed, but once you see an example, it's very straightforward. If you want to try Champs IQ, you can use coupon code ChampsIQ10. That's EYEQ10 for 10% off your submission. Just head to champsiq.com or visit Champs app and submit your player's video today. Awesome, awesome. So you did try and give professional hockey a kick at the can, but then you almost immediately started your coaching career.
Yeah.
How did you decide to become a coach so quickly?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, after my senior year at Elmira, we had a great year. We went to the Final Four that year, lost in the semis. But right after the season, the Elmira Jackals, which is the local professional team, and at the time it was the United Hockey League, they gave me an opportunity to finish the season with them. And so I did that. Got a taste of minor professional hockey. Um, but actually, there was an issue with my visa because I was a student and trying to be a professional player. Couldn't get it done. So I never actually ended up playing any games, but I practiced with the team, traveled with the team to finish my senior year. Um, but it was enough, and I had planned on going down to play in Jacksonville the next year. And that's when it was like May or June when I got a phone call from Dave Smith, who's the head coach at Canisius College. And I had put some feelers out there during my senior year as a student at Elmira, and I thought I wanted to get into coaching. I was a I was an education major. I'd thought about becoming a teacher, but then in talking with my own coaches and Aaron Saul, like they really opened my eyes to what could be possible to become a college coach and what that meant. And so I started putting out some feelers during my senior year. Dave was one of those people, one of I think two people that I got a response from. But we had some really good conversations at the end of my senior year in like May. And one thing led to another. And the more I talked to Dave, the more I realized that I wanted to be a college coach. And so even though I kind of had plans on the side to go continue to play professional hockey, um, it was a great opportunity where I could go to Canisius, I could get my foot in the door at a Division One men's program, be their goalie coach, get my master's degree, and really kickstart my coaching career. So that was a break that you know opened up a lot of different doors down the road, but gave me some really incredible experience as a young, recent college grad, to be at the Division One level, learning from such a great staff, and I'm forever grateful and indebted to Dave for that opportunity.
And so then you got a call from Elmira saying we got a women's
Yeah,
head coach opportunity. How did that come about, and why did you make the switch from men's to women's?
yeah, good question. So like I said, when the opportunity at Canisius was there, it was a graduate assistant role, and so at the time I was a full-time assistant coach, but also completing my master's degree, which was a 2-year program, and that came to an end after the 2 years, and so it was time to look for a full-time coaching job to continue this journey. Um, and one of the things that I talking to some different coaches and some different opportunities on the men's side. And even though I was just 2 years into it, I had made some really good connections, but it seemed as though at the time, like I kept running into some similar issues, and those were that, it was those jobs that were open were being filled either by other alums of the program that were coming back, and or some people maybe that had just retired from pro hockey, the NHL, the AHL, and wanted to get into coaching themselves. So not that I couldn't have continued down that path, but just reflecting on my experience, I felt like going back to a place that was so familiar to me that I was passionate about in Elmira. It felt like a really good fit to be able to go in again back to Elmira, a place I knew well, a place I felt like I could recruit to, and more like going home, frankly, after spending 4 years as a student athlete there. And the opportunity to coach women, I thought was, one that I hadn't really considered up until that point. But I felt like, you know, looking back at the Elmira women's team in their first 2 years of existence, they won back-to-back national championships. And women's hockey was something that had been around for a while, but was still very young in its infancy. And I felt like as a young head coach, it could be to my advantage to get in kind of on the ground floor, go gain some really valuable experience as a young head coach, and see where things took us. And so that's exactly what I did. Very grateful for the opportunity. That door was open to me. I walked into a situation where I knew the athletic director, Pat Thompson. She gave me that opportunity, but again, walked into a team that was well suited to win right away. And whether it was Jamie Wood or Paul Nemitz Carlson, the coaches prior to my arrival, they had set things up at Elmira for some success, and that's exactly what happened. I walked in there in year one. We had a great team, and in that first year, we were lucky enough to go right to the national championship game. And Unfortunately, we lost that one in overtime, but it was a great year, one that I reflect back on a lot. And although I'm sure, my fair share of mistakes, it was one that taught me a lot of great lessons in my coaching journey.
Talent can cover up for a lot of coaching errors, right?
Yeah, yeah. You're only as good as the players getting off the bus, usually.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get to that a little bit later, actually.
Yeah.
But let's. Obviously, you had some success at Elmira, and therefore, how did you end up getting the head coaching job at Colgate and having even more success there?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I had been there at Elmira then, I think for 4 years. And had experienced, like I said, some quick success there, with our teams at Elmira. Felt like I was growing as a coach after spending 4 years there, seeing your own recruits come in, understanding what that process looks like. And again, reflecting back at my time at Canisius, that was a different experience, but one that served me really well. And in that role at Elmira, and then beyond that at Colgate. But I felt like it was not that it was time, but just I was ready for that next step. And the job at Colgate, really it came about through just a typical change in the coaching helm at Colgate. I'm sure, like hundreds of other people, saw the posting, put my name in. But it wasn't until I was able to make a connection with the associate AD, Vicky Chun, at the time, through a coaching colleague, that we were able to get in touch and have some initial conversation. And really, the whole thing at Colgate came together really quickly. It was one conversation that led to an on-campus interview, and frankly, Colgate was just up the road from Elmira. I think it was like a 2-hour drive, but I had no idea just how incredible of a campus that was. I had never been there. I hadn't really even heard a whole lot about Colgate at the time. And it wasn't until I got there for my interview, where I quickly, realized and got super excited about what that opportunity could be. I felt like going into it, in those early years, I just felt like it had all the makings to be in a great program. It was something that when I looked around, first of all, the campus was, at the time, I think it was the most beautiful campus in the country. Um, and outstanding academics. They were a program and an athletic department that lived in the scholarship world, so that ability to kind of combine, high level academics, both with scholarships and the beautiful campus setting. I mean, for a young, aspiring women's hockey player and their family, to me, there was no better place to bring your daughter to go, aspire to reach your goals. But I think what really set it apart to me at Colgate was the people that I met, and just the passion that they had for what they felt like the program could be, the vision that they had. And I think it was that vision really that we're able to attract some of the great recruits that we did in those early years and really change the program for the better. It had everything, and I think there were the right people in place at the right time there at Colgate that saw what it could be. Vicky Chun being one of those people, and really showed a lot of belief in me by handing me the reins to that program that I'm forever grateful for.
Yeah, the one thing that is really consistent with everybody that I talk to about Colgate across the board is their support of athletics at Colgate across all the teams is just off the charts good. They really want to make sure all their teams are successful, and that having that support is a huge deal, because if you just look at the landscape today, not all the schools have the same support for their hockey teams.
No, I completely agree. What stood out to me was when I interviewed, um, I remember looking very specifically at, how their women's soccer team was doing at the time, how their women's volleyball team was doing at the time. And so other women's programs at Colgate were killing it. And in talking with those coaches, especially, like they really felt like all the ingredients to being successful were there. The support was there. Um, I want to say it wasn't shortly after, but there were plans in place at the time to build what later became the class of 1965 arena, a brand new hockey rink on campus. And so it was all those things kind of you put it all in the blender at the end of the day, and you really see the potential for what it could be. And I remember someone telling me, um, early on in my career, like if you think that you're going to go from a place like Elmira and be a head coach at a Division III school and walk into your dream job, um, you're not going to walk into a program as a head coach that's going to be at the top of Division I right away. You've got to go somewhere and really put your fingerprints all over it and try to build it from the ground up. And while I don't think we built it from the ground up in any way, was really pleased and proud of the work we were able to do to help get it to where it is today. And now really excited that it continues to be in great hands with Steph and his staff there, and they can take it into the next phase of what Colgate women's hockey is destined to be.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, so we're going to need to get to the Sirens pretty quickly here, and we're not going to talk too much more about Colgate, because if folks do want to learn all about the school, I did interview Stefan 2 years ago on the podcast, and he goes into great detail on the school and the academics and their whole recruiting profile and all that kind of stuff. But the one thing that I did want to talk to you about still about Colgate is you had a tremendous amount of success there. And one of the underlying principles and the theme that everybody talks about when it comes to Colgate is we play free. Maybe you can just talk about your philosophy of we play free, where it comes from, how you were able to apply it at Colgate, and then we'll start getting into the Sirens.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you digging into that. I think, the origins of it, Ray, are um, you know, like we do every year. We're going through it right now with the Sirens. A season wraps up, and you do a lot of reflection as a coach as far as like, what went well in that previous season, where things need to improve, what you need to start doing, stop doing, etc. And I think it was, I remember sitting in a conference room with our coaching staff around, maybe 2016, a couple years into my tenure at Colgate, and, um, just having some brainstorming sessions as far as like, okay, we've been here a few years, we know what this place is, but we really felt like we needed to put a stamp on where we wanted it to go, and how we wanted to go about doing that. And some of my experiences, early in my coaching career and as a young coach, you think a lot of times as a coach, like you're trying to control everything as a young coach, where people are on the ice, at what time, how they need to do it. And what we were finding is, at Colgate at the time, like we had a lot of great players, but they were all very different. They all had different superpowers that they brought to the team and the organization. And um, the one thing that we landed on with We Play Free is we really wanted to create an environment where every person in the room could do their best work. Every person could authentically be themselves. Um, and what we were fighting against is this notion of like people thinking that they had to play a certain way in a cookie cutter way where everybody has to do this, and if you don't do it this way, then you can't play at that level. So we play free is just really a way to allow players to be themselves authentically on the ice. And certainly we wanted to have some principles of play, things that we believed in, that could resonate throughout the lineup. But we really wanted players to come to our program, feel as though they were in our program for a reason, and that they could authentically be themselves in it, both on the ice and off the ice. And I think even today, when I'm coaching the Sirens, if we can't find ways to bring out the best individual qualities of every player, then we're not doing our job as coaches. And so part of We Play Free is just unlocking that capacity from even mentally of players feeling like they have the freedom and the runway to be themselves, play freely, and bring their best to the table each and every day.
Got it. Okay, so we're going to come back to We Play Free at the professional level in a moment, but we got to explain to folks how you ended up at the professional level. So
Sure.
obviously, you had a tremendous amount of success with your coaching philosophies and with your recruiting at Colgate. And so, how did you end up getting the job at the Sirens? And why would you go? Because we've already had some coaches go back to their old jobs from the PWHL, professional hockey, a little more cutthroat, less job security. Obviously you got a phone call. What made you, decide to go the professional ranks?
Yeah. Yeah, it was well, oddly enough, it wasn't it certainly wasn't by design. I mean, things for us at Colgate had been going pretty well. We were coming off our fourth straight ECAC championship and trip to the Frozen Four. But it was that year where we had a number of players that were graduating. And eligible for the PWHL draft. And so there were a lot of conversations happening around draft preparation between myself and some of the GMs in the league, and excuse me, Pascal being one of those GMs. And at the time, they had just announced that they were searching for a head coach, and so one thing led to another through those conversations, talking about the draft initially, but then leading to the open vacancy. And truthfully, like, I love my time at Colgate in college hockey, and it was probably the hardest decision in my career that I've ever had to make. But at the same time, kind of like making that jump from Canisius to Elmira, going from men's hockey to women's hockey, it was much of the same. Like taking that leap of faith, um, seeing what the PWHL was building and is building today, wanting to be a part of that on the ground level. Not quite on the ground, but the plane had just taken off at the time after year one. And really, again, I think there's a number of different factors. For me, it was another opportunity to challenge myself in my career. To be able to go to this new and exciting league that was taken off, to have an opportunity to coach the best players in the world. That was a challenge that I was looking forward to, that excited me. And the other thing, Ray, is like I have two young girls that are, now 13 and 11, both athletes, both aspiring to, um, you know, be their best and find their own passions. And, um, one of the things that my wife and I talk a lot about is just, chasing what you love and chasing your dreams. And I just thought it was a great way for us to showcase to our girls, that you can have big dreams and chase them. And I think, like, for them to be able to live through this with us, to go to games at Madison Square Garden, seeing sold out crowd for women's hockey games, like those are experiences that we're all living together as a family, that you can't put a price on. And so to be able to do that, as a young family, and to see our kids kind of grow up in this environment, is something that I'm really passionate about, and want to continue to show our my own girls that anything's possible.
Awesome, awesome. And are you living in New York or are you living in New Jersey?
Yeah, we live in New Jersey. Yeah, about 30 minutes outside of Newark, in the Prudential Center where we play, in a great neighborhood. Not anything like Hamilton, New York, but great in its own right. Great community. We've met some unreal people here, and really enjoying it here in Jersey.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so now let's get to the Sirens. Another challenging year for you. So the franchise still hasn't made the playoffs, which can't be good for a New York franchise not making the playoffs yet. I don't profess to be an expert on the PWHL, but I did do a little research on your team. Sounds like you had a few challenges. One, half the team was new this year. You had a bunch of injuries. Really looks like you have a lack of depth scoring, on the team. So, and you had some challenges winning on the road. Obviously, this year you had to go all the way to the West Coast for some games. I think you even had a game in Chicago on the way back. Like a lot of travel. So, what happened this year?
Yeah, no, good question. We're like I said, we're still kind of in that mode of reflecting upon the year, but lots to be learned. I think if you take a snapshot and being outside the playoffs and finishing where we did in the standings, nobody's content with where we're at. But at the same time, I think this season marks a lot of growth for our organization. Through expansion last year, ourselves and others were hit hard by that expansion process. But at the same time, we were able to you know, keep a really young and exciting core of our team. And obviously the draft we feel like the draft went really well for us last year, locking up, Colty and Casey O'Brien and other young core players. But it was those young core players that we were relying on heavily this year. In a lot of great roles. I think when it comes to rookie scoring, the New York Sirens lead the way there in the PWHL in a large way. But so in a lot of ways, yeah, we're not happy to be outside the playoffs, but I do think it was a year of growth for us. We certainly had some injuries throughout the year that didn't help us in any way. But I'm not looking to make any excuses. We did learn a lot. We know there's areas for continued growth, and we're not shying away from that. It's right now, with where the league is at with expansion, both in the rear view mirror, but also on the horizon. There's a lot of challenges when it comes to building a team and keeping a team together. But that's what we're trying to do. We're doing the best we can here to build on some of the great talent that we have. We feel like we've got our culture in a really good place in the locker room right now. We have some really young, exciting talent that is not just exciting to watch, but we play a really fun brand of hockey, I think, for our fans, and that will lead to a lot of winning. There were a lot of positives this year. We led the league in expected goals. Like our quality of play was really good. Just the actual scoring, the actual goals for was down. And so we've got to find ways to yield more in different areas. Our special teams has got to be better. But there's a lot of positives we feel like we can build on with this core group that we have.
So, what I'm hearing you saying, because I was going to ask you, do you think it was composition or competition? Like, was it like, hey, you just didn't have the horses, or just the team just didn't play to the level that they could have? But what I'm hearing you saying is it was more around experience and youth, and you're still in the development phase. You're,
Yeah.
in the NHL, there's teams that go through a rebuild, and it takes them a few years to get to the level and get the experience that they need.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's all part of it. Like having the youngest team in the PWHL. No one's making excuses. We want to win now. But I think the reality is like everything that we went through with our young core, gaining the experience that they did, that's going to serve. We feel like that's going to serve us well moving forward. That these are experiences. You could say, hey, like this is 3 years of being outside the playoffs, but the reality is there's been a huge turnover in our roster. This year's New York Sirens team that just played is not the same team that we were in the years past. So there's a lot to build on here. I think again, the youthfulness, the experience, the style of play, I think it all bodes well for the future, and we're just really excited about where we're at and where we're building towards and moving forward.
Okay, got it. All right. So I'm curious how we play free applies at the professional level, because at the professional level, it's all about winning. It's not so much about development. Obviously, you want to do some development, but you're not a development league. You're a winning league. You're a pro league. And I'm going to give you a quote from Martin St. Louis, which is, how does this apply to we play free? He specifically says, I want them to bring their game inside our game. You can't just play your game. You have to play the game, and you have to bring your game to the game. So how does we play free fit within that kind of environment?
Wow, I love the question, Ray, and I've been really dialed into Martin St. Louis as well. He's he's an exceptional coach. He's got a great young and exciting team with this Montreal Canadiens group, but it's a lot of similarities, frankly, as how Marty states it. I think at the pro level, especially, there has to be a alignment in terms of how we want to play as a team. Certainly, structure is an important part of what you do as a coach and what you bring to a group. It aligns everybody. It gets everybody on the same page and moving in the same direction. At the core, that's imperative for any coach at any level, is getting the team moving in the same direction, playing with the same guiding principles. However, within that, I think it's really important that each player is able to bring their best selves to the rink every day. When we draft players or we sign players, it's about getting the most out of them. And so that's where I see a real partnership between the players and the coaches working together. We need to play a certain way as a team, but also as coaches and players, we need to find ways to bring out the best in everyone that's in that locker room. And I'm just a firm believer, if we as coaches can help out players elevate their game even 1 or 2% throughout the room, if everyone's feeling good and playing their best, to me, that's going to bring the best out in our team. And so I think at this level in particular, when the margins are so small between winning and losing, that alignment between players playing a team game, but also finding ways for helping coaches bring out the best in their players' game and bringing out the best in themselves. That's never going to end, as I see it in my journey as a coach and my objectives to try and help every player kind of reach their potential.
Gotcha. Well, your life, as we're recording this, your life is about to get more difficult because they're announcing that Detroit is going to be getting an expansion team. And so not only do you have more competition, you're also probably going to lose some players to the expansion draft, which are going to be very favorable to expansion teams, based on everything that we've been hearing. So here's my question for you. Assuming that you still get the third pick in the draft, who are you picking? Is it going to be So we know number one is going to be KK Harvey, Caroline Harvey. Number two is probably going to be Abby Murphy. So you're going to probably have the choice between Layla Edwards or Tessa Janicki. Who are you picking?
Wow. You really think you're going to get me on that one, Ray? I can't tip my cap to that, but the reality is that, this year's draft we know is a talented one. It's the talent throughout is outstanding. Um, the reality is we don't know where we're going to pick, and we don't know what's going to happen in the coming weeks. What we do know is there's going to be an exciting opportunity to add some really really incredible ingredients to our team as we look ahead. I think as the expansion process takes shape, if it does, we've got to navigate that the best that we can, and then come time for that first round pick, we're going to find a way to add the piece that makes the most sense for us after this process is all taken shape. But there's a lot of steps that go into it. One thing I know, Pascal Daou, our GM, myself, we work really well together, hand in hand, in this, and we're going to take a deep look in terms of our needs and where we can grow. But Pascal is not one to shy away from excitement on draft day. We've been able to pull off some pretty great moves in my experience, and we'll have to wait and see if he's got anything up his sleeve again this time around.
Okay, well, I know you're very well aware of this, but Layla Edwards can play both forward and D, and so you need offense. So where would you play her in order to get the most offense and get more goal scoring?
Yeah, great question. Again, I think Layla's a great player, without a doubt, and I think can be said that she's going to offer any team, some great offense if that's where teams choose to play her, or on the back end, she can be a huge asset as well as we've seen with Team USA. So I uh, I don't know. I don't know the answer to your question at the time. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm looking forward to you know getting to know Layla a little bit more through the draft process and some of the other players that'll be available in that first round. But we'll have to wait and see where we pick and where it all shakes out to be.
Okay, well, at least I tried. I knew you weren't going to give me the straight goods just yet. A little too early for it. All right, so we now need to move more over onto back to the college side of things. So, in order to help make that transition, what's the biggest difference between coaching college players and coaching pros?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I been asked that a lot. I think the one thing that stands out, um, there's a big difference between coaching, college freshmen and sophomores and professional players. This is something that you know the players at this level, I'm blown away all the time at just their level of professionalism. I don't know how other to say it, and I think the one thing that stands out to me or stood out to me on day one is just the level of background knowledge that all the players have at this level. Like clearly, they're at the top of their game. They're the best in the world. They've been coached by great coaches at the college level. They've come up through the ranks and in their own set of ways, but they have so much background knowledge of the game and so knowledgeable about their own game. And so what I find is from a coaching standpoint, um, you're not starting at zero with these players. You're not starting at square one all the time, because they have such a vast knowledge and vast range of experience. Their ability to make adjustments inside their game, their ability to make adjustments in our team game, it can happen on the fly. But they're professionals as well in the way that they know how to take care of their body. They know what they need is in terms of rest and recovery, and what it takes to get through a long hockey season and how to be performing at the best when it matters most. I think those are the things to me, Ray, that stand out the most when it comes to coaching professional players and some of the differences that I've seen, that players often have to learn, and as expected through the college process. I think there's no question that someone who comes in as a first year freshman, and seeing how they grow to becoming a much more responsible professional senior, and then that can lead into their professional career. There's no telling that those formative years in college are critical, and they happen quickly, but an important part of the growth process. But when they get here to the pro level, they've already got a lot of those skill sets in their back pocket.
Yeah, and also helps that many of them played internationally, and that's also a different kind of level of competition, a level of structure, a level of commitment that you need to be playing at that level. And obviously, bringing that to the pro levels is probably an easier transition for kind of many of those players.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think a lot of those players, whether it's U18s, U22s, development team, national team, like they've all got most of them have some familiarity with the national program, and I think it's all those different hockey experiences that allow them to hit the ground running here when they get here.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So through Champs, I've been doing webinars for almost 2 years now, and usually at the end of the webinars, we let folks ask questions. And one of the key questions they always ask is, okay, in the spring, summer, which events do you recommend? And there's are many really great events. Usually, I recommend individual camps for specific schools if you're interested in them. And then there's I can go through the whole list of all the different organizations that put on great female showcases and things like that. But the number one event that I've always recommended is the Colgate camp, because it has, not only is it on campus at Colgate, but it attracts coaches from a whole bunch of other schools. Now, obviously, you were running the Colgate camp. It's now changed name, so it's now formally known as the Colgate camp. Now it's called Fargo Camp. Maybe just tell folks what it's all about and what's going on this year, and all the changes going on, and why it's such a great event.
Yeah, Ray, thanks. Thanks for that. I appreciate the nod to the Colgate exposure camps in the past and what we've turned it into now. But since moving on from Colgate, the camps that we were running there at the time, like that was a bit of a passion project for me. And something that we want to continue to move forward with Fargo Hockey. And this year we're going to be running the college hockey experience in Rochester, New York. It'll be the first time being in Rochester. But we're taking that same model with us and moving it over. We're going to have well over 20 coaches with us for the week. We have two different sessions, and we've invited these coaches to come and work with the players that attend the camp for two reasons, really. One, we want to give the best possible exposure for our players to these coaches that we possibly can. But the other probably the core reason and one of the reasons that we started this is we want to try and bring as much clarity to campers, to prospects, to parents in about the recruiting process that we possibly can. I think in my time at Colgate, um, you know, when I put myself into the shoes of the PSA, the prospect, and the parents, it's a really muddy world, and that's part of the reason that you started Champs, I'm sure, is to try and bring clarity to the recruiting process and what it looks like and what it means. And one of the things we try to do at Fargo Hockey is to bring the coaches and the campers and the parents together as much as we possibly can. We want to create experiences where everybody can interact, everybody can ask questions, and we can bring clarity to the recruiting process itself, the rules around it, and some of the misconceptions that are out there that revolve around recruiting. And I think, um, in my experience, like as a college coach, a lot of times you go to a tournament or you go watch a game, and because of the NCAA rules, you're not allowed to interact with anybody at the rink. And even though it's awkward, everybody has questions, the rules are always changing, so it's hard to like to follow it. We can't really interact. And so at a camp where we hire coaches to come in, we hire them to not only evaluate but to educate. We try to create an environment where everybody can learn, and you can also showcase yourself and walk away feeling really good about what those next steps should look like, regardless of where you're at in your recruiting process.
Gotcha. So maybe just let folks know which schools will be in attendance this year.
Oh, wow. We've got a long list. We've got a long list. So just a few to name, and I know I'm going to miss some, but we've got Cornell, we've got Colgate, we have BU, we have BC, Robert Morris, Syracuse, we've got Elmira and Plattsburgh, trying to think, Trinity and Hamilton, and wow, where do I
Well,
end?
they can go look on the website. I just wanted to give
Can
folks a
go.
feel for who the D1 and the D3
Yeah,
schools
we've
that were
got it.
going to be in
We
attendance.
try to mix it up. We've tried to get a number of Division One programs, scholarship schools. We have some Ivy League schools. Dartmouth and Princeton will be there this year. RIT local school will be there. We've also got some great Division Three programs in Nazareth and St. John Fisher, local to Rochester, Oswego, etc. And so really trying to mix it up with scholarship schools, Ivy Leagues, the NESCACs, and some other Division Three schools. So really want to appeal to a lot of different people and have those campers and the parents that come to our camp, offer them the opportunity to learn about all the different types of institutions that are out there that may or may not be a good fit for your daughter.
Gotcha. So now you have no agenda in terms of recruiting anybody for any schools particularly. So now you can tell us the straight goods. So
Yeah.
how do coaches actually scout these events? What's the
Yeah.
inside story?
Well, I think, obviously college coaches have a tough challenge ahead of them. There are a lot of players to evaluate at all times, and I think um, you know, in some ways, that challenge is getting easier. There's more access to video and so on and so forth. But one of the things that gets missed a lot of times, if you're just recruiting on video or just recruiting on word of mouth, are those interactions. For me as a former college coach, one of the things that we've really put a lot of value in are those interactions that you're able to have with the kids themselves or with the parents, and really get an understanding of like not just who the player is, but who the people are that you want to bring into your program. And to me, you can't put a price on that. To be able to understand what makes a player tick, kind of their values and the family that they come from. You're what you're looking to do as a college coach is bring someone into your family, someone you're going to spend the next 4 or 5 years with, and so you want to make sure that as much as possible, you're aligned in a lot of ways. And so that's what I think, Fargo Hockey really affords us to do on the coaching side is get a chance to work with these players in a smaller setting, where you can not only be on the ice for a practice or be behind the bench during a game, but get to know some of these players off the ice as well. So that's one of the things I think that we try to do at Fargo Hockey. We try to also, offer the coaches as much information on all the players that are coming to camp as possible. All their contact info, background info, everything that we have, we want to share with the coaches that are in attendance to make it as easy for them to evaluate the talent at camp as much as possible. So there's a lot that goes into it. We try to make it easy for the coaches so they're not overworked at our camp. They've got lots of time to sit and evaluate, and also run a few off ice sessions or info sessions, where they can get to know some of these families off the ice as well.
Gotcha. So if you're a family and you're attending Fargo Camp, what should the players, and maybe even the parents be doing like before, during, and then after the event in
Yeah.
order to kind of really position themselves with the schools and the coaches that they're most interested in?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, and there are different phases to this. I think the first thing is, to make it well known to the coaches that are going to be in attendance, who you are, who you are as a player, what they can expect to see when that coach sees you on the ice at the Fargo camp. I think that early communication is really important, and hopefully it's been something that has been taking shape maybe throughout the academic year. I'm sure the Fargo camp isn't the first one that you're going to if you're coming to it, but maybe it's a tournament that you're going to attend. These are great ways for you to be able to communicate with these coaches in advance of said events. But as we know, the NCAA rules don't always allow coaches to respond to those emails, right? Or those communications, but that's okay. Coaches still get those. They're reading them. And frankly, they're making plans for how they're going to spend their time at a camp or at a tournament. And so that early communication is really important so they can map out which games they're going to watch, who they're going to watch inside those games. And I think it's really important for campers to know and understand, to try and be specific, as much as you possibly can when you're communicating with these coaches. If you've got an interest in school X, it's really important to show, that you're not just sending a mass email to 100 different schools. You know a little bit about that program, that school, that coach, that maybe sets you apart from some of the other recruits that may be out there. So that kind of takes shape before. When you're at camp, when you're on boots on the ground, I think the first thing is perform well. That's the best thing and I think some of the stuff that gets lost is, yes, you can communicate before and after, but really what coaches are looking for is for you to be able to showcase your abilities in the best way possible on the ice. Every coach knows that different players have different superpowers. They do, not any two players are alike. And so, but what we want to see is you being able to perform your very best when you're out there. So that's the advice I like to give everybody. The other thing is to try and make the interactions with the coaches positive ones. Get out of your comfort zone, introduce yourself, say hello, have some questions to ask that may be specific to that coach or their philosophy. Asking for feedback is always a great way to get some conversation going. But just being your personable self is another way to kind of set yourself apart in those events. And then on the tail end of things, I think it's really important to have some sort of follow up, especially if you've been afforded that opportunity to communicate with some of the coaches that are there. have a follow-up, have a next step in place. Maybe it's a campus visit, maybe it's a phone call, but taking that recruiting process to the next step. And that's something that we try to do with all the campers and the parents that are at our camp is, leave with a roadmap of what comes next, and have a better understanding of the process overall.
Gotcha. And correct me if I'm wrong. The dates are basically the end of the first week of July, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's July 6th to the 10th. There's 2 sessions. The first one is July 6th to midday on the 8th, and then session 2 starts in the afternoon. We'll go midday on the 8th until the end of the day on the 10th. So 2 different sessions. We currently have some availability left. A couple D spots and a few more forward spots, but we're in good shape as far as the camp goes. It should be a great one.
Well, not after this podcast airs. They'll probably fill up pretty quick. So, couple last questions because we do have to wrap up. So, now once again, since you aren't actually doing the recruiting, what's the inside scoop on how coaches and the coaching staffs are preparing for June 15th? What do you do right up to that date, and what are you doing on that date or those first couple of days?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I know that date is quickly approaching. It's an exciting one for a lot of people. A lot of nerves, a lot of excitement. There's all sorts of emotions, and I would say the feelings are mutual on the coaching side. Coaches are eager and excited to be able to finally start talking to that next wave of recruits. As a coach, I think one of the things is you're always looking kind of at your depth chart to see where the team's going to be not only next year but over the next couple of years, and then trying to figure out from there, what do you need? What's that type of player, or what are those characteristics in players that are going to help us get to the next level? And so from there, it's really having a really good, strong understanding of the pool of players that are out there. One of the things that myself and my staff, we really prided ourselves on is understanding the entire pool. Who's out there? What are their characteristics and their skill sets that are available? And from there, a lot of communication in advance, a lot of talking with coaches and advisors and people of influence that have some insight on some of these players. I think when June 15th hits, as a coach, you want to know as much about these potential recruits as you possibly can for that first conversation, but also for that recruiting process. You want to know how to navigate it. What's important to that player? What are they looking for? What do they value in a coaching staff? Like what are the things that are going to allow us to separate ourselves as a program for that player to help try and bring them to our school ultimately? And so there is a lot of different discussions. As a staff, we would meet all the time about all those things, what it is we feel like we need, who are the people that we want to spend the most time and attention at recruiting. But then the reality is, once those initial calls happen, a lot of times that game plan A, you throw it out the window because things change quickly. And as you know, after on or after June 15th, sometimes commitments are happening right away or shortly thereafter. And you're always in this mode of being nimble and being willing to pivot as a program. But that's why I think a lot of the work on the front end and understanding the whole pool, who's out there, what their interest level is going to be in your program, and from there, just learning as much as you possibly can about that recruit and that family.
Perfect. Okay, last question, and then I'm going to let you go. We could keep talking for another 2 hours. So I got asked last week a question on one of our webinars about the role of the parent. So when my daughter was going through the process, I basically let her run everything, and I kind of only came in when I think even on campus visits before I actually started speaking to coaches. Obviously, I had a little bit of an inside edge with different coaches given the podcast. But I'm curious, what is the role of the parents, and when is the first time usually that the coaching staff actually interacts or starts having conversations with the parents?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I would be sure, Ray, that every college coach that you ask that question to might have a different take on it. But for me personally, I think the parents they play an important role in this process. I do. I think you know, as a parent, I think it's critically important to allow your daughter to be the lead singer in this journey, in this recruiting process. It's important for them to take those initial phone calls, to get to be able to be in an environment where they can build a relationship with the coach or the coaching staff that's recruiting them. But I do think, like, from the coaching standpoint, at a certain point, whether it's on a Zoom call at a later date, whether it's on campus on the visit, involving the parents, getting to know the parents, and making sure that they have the opportunity to get their questions answered by the coach and by the coaching staff is an important part of that process. I think we try to we've always tried to, and again, when I was coaching at the college level, tried to involve the parents, get to know them, to make sure that they felt like they were a part of this process. Because really, as much as this is, um, the prospect's decision, it's a family decision, and we understood that, and so involving them, I think, on both sides of it, starting some of those conversations, was really important because when they get to your program and they're in it every day. You want the parents to feel involved and a part of that journey as well. It's not just about the player. The reality is parents are along for that ride as well, and we wanted everybody to feel welcome, to feel valued, and to make sure that we were all on the same page. Because I think that's an important thing, not only during the process, but when they get to your program and they're a part of your program.
Perfect. All right. That's a perfect spot to wrap this up. Greg, I want to thank you so much for taking so much time to answer all these questions about your hockey history, how you became a coach. Obviously, the We Play Free in Colgate, putting up with my questions about the Sirens, and then obviously great to hear all the detail about the Fargo Camp, and you still got a few spots left. So we'll put links in the show notes for folks to learn more about the camp and if they're interested to sign up.
That's great, Ray. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. Big fan of your podcast and what you're doing, and looking forward to hearing more in the coming weeks.
Well, I really hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Greg Fargo. He shared some great insight into pro hockey and the college recruiting experience. You can connect with Greg and learn more about the Fargo Camp via the links in the show notes.